All right. Gonna slowly get started. I'm sure there'll be a few more people that jump on as we get rolling here, but I don't want to waste any time. I know we have a lot to chat about. This is a really exciting and fun topic. Hopefully, I find it really fun. Um, and I think it's cool to nerd out about producing. So, anyway, first and foremost, thank you so much for being here. This live stream is part of a series called You Are the Union. And I want to introduce some of the people that you're seeing on your screen right here. My name is Aubrey Mosino. I'm joined by Evan Bass, and we are both members of SAG-AFTRA who have also been elected to some leadership positions and serve on a lot of different committees, local and national. And we also have a really special guest, another SAG-AFTRA member, and also the executive director of the Soho International Film Festival, Sybil Santiago. So thank you both so much for being here. And before I let them do a little bit of a deeper intro of themselves, I just want to say that, these You Are the Union live streams, we've been doing them for a few months now, and hopefully you've been able to tune into some of the past topics. So they've been really awesome ways to connect with the community. And it's something that I think a lot of us have been wanting to do for years, and really get some of the elected leaders in a room, whether it's virtual or, hopefully ideally one day in person again, with the members. And, I think a lot of people tend to think of SAG-AFTRA as sometimes that really corporate looking building on Wilshire. It's a little intimidating. It's maybe not the sexiest thing. And so hopefully these meetings will start to make it a little bit more of a approachable and accessible, and get more people, more members involved with what the union does. And that's really just the goal here. I'm gonna also answer some questions, and maybe even find people to connect and collaborate with. You never know. So it's also important to just remember, though, that the union is not just that kind of intimidating building. It is, you are the union, and it's up to the members. We have the power to make changes within the union. We can run for office, and we can offer feedback to staff and other elected leaders on how to better advocate for membership as a whole. So that's what these meetings are all about, just brainstorming, a chat, and we're looking forward to hearing from all of you, hopefully, today. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about self-producing as a SAG-AFTRA member. It's becoming really essential, especially now during these times, to be able to be a multi-hyphenate and wear lots of hats and know how to create your own opportunities and your own work. And obviously, as SAG-AFTRA members, we want to be able to do that without working off the card, and that's really important. Sometimes some of the paperwork can feel a little daunting, but we're happy to, go through any questions you have and make it feel a lot easier and not as scary. So we're just going to chat about all things producing. Just to be clear, Evan and I are here as individuals. We are not spokespeople for the union. We've been elected to positions, but we are here in an unofficial capacity. We don't have the authority to speak on behalf of the union. We're here just as ourselves. So we hopefully will have a lot of answers to your questions, but if we don't, we'll absolutely make sure we track down those answers and get you the info that you need. And we might not be able to act on all of the awesome ideas you have immediately, but we will absolutely be passing along all of this feedback to other leaders and other staff members, and I know that's what really gets change to happen. So I know there's probably other elected leaders on the Zoom or watching on YouTube, so I'm sure they'll be taking notes as well. And we're just really curious to hear what's on your mind and what's important to you. And just again, to be very clear, we're here in an unofficial capacity. And so hopefully that means we can be, a little bit more candid as well about our opinions. And obviously nothing confidential will be spoken about in these meetings as well. So that's sort of the housekeeping stuff. The sort of agenda for this meeting is going to be pretty self-explanatory. We're just going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to dive into questions. So Jen, I know, has put some info on how you can ask questions. You can ask them via text. You can direct message her if you're in the Zoom meeting, or you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can put them in the chat box there. Or if you are on the Zoom meeting, you can even say that you want to speak on camera, and we can make sure we get your camera on, and you can ask a question that way. So Totally fine though if you would also like to ask anonymously, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. But start getting those questions in now, just so there's not a whole bunch that end up popping up in the last 20 minutes. And we'll be prioritizing the first-time questioners. So if you have asked a question before, just know we'll be patient. We'll try and get back to you. Yeah, so just if you do turn on your camera to talk, try and keep it as brief as possible so we can get as many people questions, answers as possible. So lastly, last little bit, just to let everyone know, we are recording this live stream. And the reason why we're doing that is we want to be able to replay it and share it with more people who couldn't attend in person. So make sure if you are comfortable asking your questions, with your name out there, just know that this will be recorded and will be shared on a YouTube channel at a later date. But if you're not comfortable, totally fine to be anonymous. So also you can just contact us on Instagram, DM us. I'm going to be giving my email address out. You can contact me anytime for anything. My email address is Aubrey, AUBREY, at wemakemovies.org. You can always email me any questions you have about this or just anything union or producing related. Okay, that's enough about me. Brief bio is, as I said, my name's Aubrey Mozino. I am a SAG-AFTRA member, and I'm also the president of a film community called We Make Movies. And that community is dedicated to empowering creatives of all type, not just performers, but directors, crew people, writers, to sort of taking back control of their careers and creating their own opportunities and making the content that they want to see. And we do that by providing a bunch of different resources and educational content. So I've produced a lot, and I love doing it. And for me, it changed so much about my acting career when I was able to really learn about the behind the scenes stuff. So I'm excited to talk more about that. I'll turn it over to Evan Bass now to introduce himself, and then we'll get to Sybil and we'll get started.
Well, Evan Bass, as Aubrey said, SAG-AFTRA member of a lot of different committees. I also run Electronic Bass Entertainment, small production company. We've done web series, short films, feature films, you name it, of different budgets. And also, I guess I've been doing it, producing for a decade now, maybe a little less than a decade. So have talked with a lot of other producers and passed on information, also other members. I think, sort of as Aubrey said, a multi-hyphenate, when you're self-taping now, you are your own producer and a little bit of your own director. And you gotta, the more you understand behind the scenes, be it understanding from a DP, the different cameras they're using to see, what the framing is versus, just what the director's looking for. I think personally, the more I understand about filmmaking, the more I understand as an actor on how to give sort of the best performance as well. Also, self-producing allows you to sort of push the limits of what you can film because you can do it more experimentally or whatever's your ilk. As Aubrey also said, I'm on a number of committees. One of the ones that we're both on is the low budget committee, and one of the reasons I'm very passionate about that is because it allows members to sort of voice change in the union to both get more work for our membership, making it easier for producers to go union, and also listening to sort of the voice of the members and try and make it easier for self-producing and things like that. And also, I think, one of the greatest kind of resources we have as a union is the number of people who are doing so many amazing things that we can be resources for each other. So, webinars like this, where we can just share information, I think is super helpful. And I think, hopefully we continue this past the Zoom era of things. Pass it on to you, Sybil.
Hi guys, I'm Sybil Santiago. I am I'm a SAG-AFTRA member, started as an actor, working at my mom's production company. My mom happens to be a filmmaker and a producer, had her production company. So most of my life, as I was acting, I was already working behind the scenes. So it was natural progression growing up to help with other friends in their productions. And I guess what happened is time comes when you come to your career where you start realizing that there's just maybe not enough projects out there that represent who you are. So I started my own production company about a decade ago as well, and started working with more projects that I felt most passionate about, projects that I was involved in, or I could get involved with people that I know would tell the stories of underrepresented communities. And from there, the production company has grown. We've done a lot of features, shorts, shows. I've done some shows in Asia, which is really wonderful because I was able to reach what I was doing basically just because of the need. It's almost is the reason why I started self-producing. And now I have my own production company, Sitting Cat Productions, that's been around for over a decade. And just like Evan, I think being able to transfer what you do and your passion, because as actors we are there to tell stories and to represent stories, and most actors out there are not just really one wonder per se of just presenting yourself with other people's stories. You have your own stories that you want to tell, and I'm seeing that more and more on a daily basis. And I, as a matter of fact, it's the reason I ended up running a film festival, the Soho International Film Festival, which is happening in 3 weeks. So we're in a little bit of depth of it, but we do have a lot of films that we get from actors that have become writers or producers or filmmakers themselves, because they start realizing more of what they have inside them that they want to, share with the world. And that would always come from the stories. So this is a really great panel. Thanks for putting it together. Because I think this is something that I think as actors, we should definitely be more open to, on collaboration with each other, with other people, because it is a true expression when you say it takes a village. It really does take a village to do anything. And that includes, putting a film together, as you know, and as an actor as well. Once you start working behind the scenes, even if you don't decide to go producing or filmmaking, just learning about it will make you a much better actor, because you just become more aware of how things are running on set, and how things are put together, and how people, what everybody's role on set is. And I really think it's an important part of your step to grow in this business.
1000%. Great. Well, thank you both for being here. I can see there's already a few questions that are coming in. So first one is from Jacqueline Palmquist, and this is she's watching on YouTube. She asked, what's the best way to search for below the line crew members? Are there websites or forums to put the word out when you are looking? I think we can probably all dive into this one. I'll just say, yes, there's lots of different places. Mandy.com is a resource that you can use for a lot of, I would say, more green talent tends to post on there. Finding a community, though, for instance, like I said, I run a film community where we basically have a database full of crew members that we recommend to people. So finding community, whether it's, We Make Movies or another one, that's sort of a, collaborative co-op of filmmakers, that can usually be a great place to start as well. There's a lot of them out there. But Evans, well, do you guys have go-tos for places that you look for online?
I definitely agree. I haven't used Mandy in a while, but Mandy was my go-to. I also think tapping into film schools. I mean, in New York, you have NYU film school. You've got Columbia, their grad program in film. That there's always communities of people who are passionate and looking to do more work. And I know both those schools. When you're there for directing, you also learn to do all the other things, and you're helping out each other on projects, and working on projects outside of just a film project, like a film school project, is a cool opportunity. And they'll come, they'll be green, but they come, with some training. I would say my one caveat is always sound. I've learned I don't really pick up a young sound person who doesn't have their own equipment. If they don't have their own equipment, then they're definitely green in it. I know I personally have invested in some sound equipment. So like if I'm doing a really easy run and gun project, then, you know, I can bring somebody in and they can use my stuff. But that's the one crew I remember I don't trust going super green. And in that one, it's worth having the budget and just paying for somebody. A sound person comes with their own equipment. They know how to use it. You can't fix sound in post very easily.
I'm going to echo what Aubrey and Evan said, but there's also another site I like to use. Staff Me Up is actually one site I like to use because you can put specifically what you need, and people can reach out to you, that's one thing that's important, because all of these Facebook pages, and there's a lot in the city that I think is really great that you can reach out to, because people, especially when they're in between work, you know, sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll get professional level crew that will be willing to work on even the smallest project, because if they like the project and it's easy enough for them, it's close by, or for whatever reason, you know, you will get that. But it's very important when you post, though, that you are clear what your project is. Don't lie. That's like the worst thing and the worst way to start relationships in this business. And, you know, this community is big, but it's very small. It's very easy to blacklist people that you'll never work with again. So especially if you're going to be producing, because that's something that spreads so quickly like wildfire. If you mistreat your crew, you know, it's very fast. It's a fast moving vehicle in terms of how, you know, badly they'll feel that they're treated, and you almost never it's very hard to get a second chance a lot of times. So just be honest, post your what you're looking for, what you're paying or not paying, if it's credit, whatever it is, because you will get responses from people that might just really feel like filling their time, or, you know, you'll be able to at least have options and opportunities to get from there. So
That's great.
I just want to jump in. If you are just giving people a copy, so that you're not paying, or you're doing deferred pay, but part of that is, you know, somebody's trying to build a reel. It's a DP who's trying to, you know, they mainly do industrials, or they mainly do commercials, so they want to do narrative work. So you're providing them copy. When you are done, make sure you give them copy.
Yeah.
I remember when I was starting out acting, and I did a couple of like film school things, and I was supposed to get copy, and I was like, you know, it was a push for me to do it. And then I never got copy, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's the easy part. But it's easy also to forget. So, you know, if you make a promise, keep those promises, because as Sybil said, I mean, I have my short list of like, man, you screwed me over.
Yes,
True.
yes, it goes, yes, definitely. Keep your word. I mean, I know sometimes things happen, let's face it, especially independent filmmaking, you know, things fall apart sometimes, right? And that's okay. Be honest. Just talk to anyone that you work with. It's all about relationships in this business, and the better relationships you have, the better reputation you have. Sometimes, I mean, I have people that I work with that I don't necessarily love outside of work, but they're professional when it comes to their work. So I will work with them again, and vice versa. There are people that are least experienced, but they are wonderful to work with, that I'll bring back to set. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I just was reminded that, you know, actually in our contracts, SAG-AFTRA built in that producers required to give copy. So if you are not getting your payment, which is part of, you know, copy could be part of your payment, you can contact the union. And that's one of the perks of doing even low budget to no budget projects under a union contract, is you can make sure that you have backup in terms of getting the copy that you need, safety on set, right? That you get meals at appropriate times. All of those things are really, really even maybe more so important when you are working for deferred pay or very low pay. So just, you know, again, it's maybe a little bit more paperwork, but it's really important as a member producer that you are taking care of your fellow members who would, you know, want the same sort of respect on another set.
Exactly.
And sort of piggybacking on that, just real quick, just as a reminder, both from the SAG-AFTRA side and the producing side, the SAG-AFTRA contracts are the minimum rates are a minimum rate. It's negotiable from the actor side, and knowing from a producer side, you know, if you have somebody who's like, I'm not going to do it for this minimum rate, I'm not going to do it for this, they can negotiate. So you should be prepared to negotiate. You should understand, you know, what budget you have, how much you can afford, or, you know, okay, maybe you know, you can't do this, or maybe it's important to have that person. But just if you are seeing the contracts for the first time and a lot of stuff, the template contracts for, crew and, SAG-AFTRA members, there are usual minimums. Crew, it's sort of an accepted minimum, but that doesn't mean that is the set rate. It's a discussion and can be higher. And, if you have a DP and that person's coming with a camera and additional equipment, they might have a kit fee that's additional, or that might just be built into their day rate. So sort of understanding, it's not, with producing, it's not always like, it's going to cost this much. It's like, it's going to cost this much and you budget for this much because it's really going to cost this much.
Yep.
So just to keep in mind.
If I can piggyback on that also, I know it's expanding a bit, but speaking of, and it might go on this subject later, but just a little bit of it when it comes to budgeting. Just so you know, the smaller your project is, the more independent per se the project is, and the more low budget it is, the more prep and the more readiness you should have. So in other words, what Evelyn was saying with budgeting, because you are at such a minimum scale, meaning you're likely asking a lot of favors from a lot of people, you should definitely prepare best you can so that you can budget appropriately for it. And
don't skimp on meals.
Exactly.
If you're not paying a lot, if you're not paying people a lot, or people are going a bit of a distance, make sure that they're not complaining about being fed, because it's the little things that count.
All right, we've got a few more questions that just popped in. So from Katarine, and she's watching via YouTube. She says, thanks for doing this. How does a completely self-contained, as in I do everything myself, YouTube production, think vlog, that is not for profit, fit into the scheme of being SAG-AFTRA? Can I just do it, or do I need to file something with the union? And does that change if I get advertiser support? Thanks again. So yes, if you are as a SAG-AFTRA member, it's important that everything you do is on the card. So even if you're doing something completely yourself, even a vlog that's just going on YouTube, technically, yes, you are absolutely expected to file the paperwork. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. It's not that hard. And I will say that there's been talks for a very long time of simplifying this process. And I know now more than ever, I think staff is really going to be close to finalizing that. So I think we'll have even some more information, I think, coming soon about better ways to expedite this process. But right now, in the short term, there's a short project agreement, which is short for SPA, that if you go to the SAG-AFTRA website under contracts.
Wait, I'm just going to jump in, Aubrey. It wouldn't be under SPA, it'd be under new media because it's a series.
Yep. Oh, okay, yes, that's important.
Because the blog, I'm assuming the blog is a series.
Very true. So yes, if you are doing a standalone project, like a short film, that would fall under the SPA agreement, the short project agreement. If you're doing a episodic in nature series, like a vlog, that would be a low budget new media contract. And both of those agreements and contracts can be found on the SAG-AFTRA website under the contracts, under new media, and they have SPA and they have new media, which you can get more information about. But absolutely, you would want to start the paperwork at least 4 to maybe even 6 weeks in advance if possible, because right now the union is down to core functions. Things are taking a little bit longer to process. So the more lead time you can give them, the better. But it doesn't cost you anything to file the paperwork. It's not any added cost to you as a producer to do this. And, I'm happy, I'm sure other people in this Zoom would be happy too. If you have specific questions, I've done it a million times. You can email me anytime, happy to help you. Aubrey@wemakemovies.org. But basically, yeah, you just want to file the paperwork. They're going to make you register as a signatory, and they're going to send you some things to sign to make sure that you are aware of the necessity to have insurance on set, the COVID protocols. Obviously, those are new, but it's really important, even if it's just you, that you are being safe. But it's absolutely important that you do work on the card, even if you're producing something really quick just to put on YouTube. In terms of changing if you get advertiser support, it's not necessarily a change in the contract that you would use, but the only thing to really keep in mind is if you are putting up this content on YouTube, which is a free to consumer, right? You don't need to pay anything to watch something on YouTube. That's a free to consumer platform. Then you are allowed to defer payment. If you then put that project, let's say, on a pay to download platform or a platform that's behind a paywall like Netflix, or even just Amazon Prime where you're downloading per episode, you would immediately have to pay out any deferred payments the second that project goes up there. So that's just the important thing to know about the destination. Where is that project living? And being able to make sure that you can budget for any deferred payments if you decide to sell it or put your project on a paid-for platform like Amazon Prime. You guys have anything else to add on?
Just, yeah, I mean, on the specifics, if it's just you doing it and you are every crew member and performer, then, I mean, going and getting a sponsor, the only thing that SAG-AFTRA would do would fight on your behalf to make sure that you as the performer got paid by the production company, which is you. So the only tweak to be aware of is if you got a sponsorship and then you brought other people onto the show, then you just have to be aware, okay, making sure that they're properly compensated because you have a sponsorship. But yeah, as Aubrey said, especially for low budget new media stuff, it's very easy. I actually did one, put in paperwork just before I guess the beginning of the pandemic for one, shooting at home. And one thing to know is staff is very willing to chat and sort of work with people on getting the productions in a good place for being able to go union. That they're not like, well, we got to, you have to do this and you have to do this, or we're going to come for you. The goal is to make them smooth, but also, if you're doing something at home and then you invite somebody over and it's a union production, you probably should follow, as Aubrey said, like COVID protocols, making sure nobody gets sick on set. Just as small productions as much as big productions, we have to be, careful and protective. And think of it on the dual side, it's both protecting you as a producer so that from liability, but also SAG-AFTRA is for the members, and they will fight for the members to make sure that on any set, a performer is safe, even if it is on a set with a friend.
And I'll just add that, it elevates your project and make it a SAG project versus just a non-union project. So I'm also in the Producers Guild, and I know we have a lot of members that actually are vloggers or bloggers that have their own shows and produce their own shows and started. So I think that it starts with having a legitimate project, and that's one thing. The stamp of SAG being on your project does legitimize your project quite a bit. Yeah.
This question actually is a little bit in the same vein anyway. So we'll dive into Lily Rain's question via YouTube. Will there be a contract that supports self-produced small shoots, i.e. just me, a loyal union actor, but that doesn't require insurance, payroll, etc.? So as we sort of mentioned a little bit before, right now, yes, it's absolutely important that you have insurance and you file the paperwork for either a low budget new media or a spa project, and follow those protocols. And the reason why, it's not that SAG-AFTRA wants to make it complicated for performers who are trying to produce and make them have to pay for expensive production insurance, but it's also a state law. So taking, let's say in California, there is a state law that you must cover all of your employees with workers' comp. So even if SAG-AFTRA said, we don't require you to have production insurance, the state of California would, because even if people are working for deferred pay, they're technically still your employee and you would need to cover them with workers' comp. So it's not necessarily something that we can be angry at SAG-AFTRA for requiring. It's really just best practices. And also, God forbid there was ever an accident on your set. Obviously, you would be really responsible for taking care of that actor and that performer, and having that insurance ensures that they will be able to do that. And it's not going to affect your bottom line and your income as well. So as of right now, like I said, every contract requires production insurance and requires you to pay your employees, pay your actors as employees, not independent contractors. But as I said, I know in the union for a long time, there's been a lot of talk of ways to streamline this process and ways to make it easier and not have to have such a delay. So I have good feeling that we'll be hearing probably soon from staff who I know is really stretched thin, especially now, on ways that we can make this even easier for member producers. But I would just encourage everyone to keep checking the website. It's getting updated constantly with not just COVID protocols, but so much information about, how production is changing. So I would recommend just checking back on that site, because I have a good feeling that we'll be hearing some changes coming hopefully soon.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add two things. Yeah, not that I memorized it, but Resolution 2017-25-R from 2017 convention unanimously was passed, specifically asking for these kind of micro budget member produced projects to be made easier. And as Aubrey said, I know staff is actively working on this, so there'll be an update soon. But they, especially given the pandemic, they are working really hard to make this a reality. My other caveat is if you have renter's insurance, I would check the fine print, because sometimes some of the renter insurance does cover workers' comp in your own apartment. And therefore, if you have renter's insurance and it does cover it and you are filming in your own apartment, then you already have insurance covered. It's a nice little caveat that if you have renter's insurance and it does cover that, then you already have it. And renter's insurance actually is usually a bit cheaper than short-term production insurance. So if you don't have it and you were thinking about filming in your apartment a lot, I think it's very minimal cost for like a year's of renter's insurance. And if it does cover that, and you're planning for your vlog or whatever to be in your apartment, it's something that you can possibly look into, just because it will cover you. And sort of as Aubrey said, the insurance side of it is not a SAG-AFTRA thing. They're mainly pointing out that it is a state requirement in California and in New York. It's a state requirement that any employer, and as a production company, you're an employer, has to have workers' comp just for liability protection of people working for them. That said, in addition, if it is just you can ask SAG-AFTRA if there are exceptions, just if it's you like a single person. If there's like literally nobody else, you are pressing record, there might be exceptions for a single person situation. I don't know for sure, but it's worth asking staff. Sort of any gray line area, it's always worth asking just to get some clarification.
Great. All right. I'm so sorry if I butcher your name in advance. Tareya Danea, and you are via Zoom. So I don't think you want to speak on camera, but let me know if I'm incorrect in that. Evan mentioned investing in sound. With a limited budget, what are other important positions to invest in? Yeah, I would just want to also completely amplify the sound thing. If there's one thing that audiences do not forgive, it's poor audio. They're much more forgiving of bad video, blurry video, slightly out of focus video than they are bad audio. But obviously, some other really important positions, it sort of depends, I think, on the size of your project, right? So if it's just a super minimal, like a 2 to 3 person crew, then really it's about having someone who can obviously operate the camera well, knows how to set up framing that's aesthetically pleasing, and ideally can even set up some simple lighting. Once you start scaling that production to a bigger size, I would say for me, one of my essential crew members on set is a first AD. I need to work with a first AD because they really keep the set running efficiently. They're kind of the bad guy on set. They can be the people that say, hey, makeup, how's it going? How much longer? And really push people. So you as a member producer don't have to be going around and sort of being the bad guy on set and maybe pushing people to be a little bit more efficient or quicker. So I love when especially I'm acting and producing a project, to be able to have someone who can really manage the day for me. And that first AD, I think does that, for me at least, really well. But again, it just depends, I think, on the size of the project you're working on. For a 2 to 3 person set, you probably don't need a first AD, it just depends. But Evan, Sybil, what are your must-haves?
I agree with you, the first lady, especially with a small production. I think a lot of the membership, or at least I feel like maybe most of these questions are coming from really small scale projects, which is pretty much kind of like a one-man band most of the time. There is one thing though, I just to remind about the sound. Like I said, I run a film festival, I program, so I watch not a few films, but I watch thousands of films on a regular basis because we go through submissions. And that is one of the biggest peeve that's really hard on set when sound is not properly done, because it's like a chalkboard moment, a lot of times when you're watching something. I think for me, and sadly, I have to say, bad casting, which is a problem. And this is something I bring up only here because this is a SAG-AFTRA table, that, sometimes if you're going to be self-producing, maybe something to keep in mind is how much do you really want to be? Are you writing something or producing something because you want to feature yourself? Or are you writing, producing something because you want to, to direct or just tell a story? The reason I bring that up is because that to me affects what crew is important to you. If you are acting in a film that you are also producing, that you wrote because it's something that you want to highlight what you do, which is likely what most people here would want to do, it is important to have that really good first AD. And hopefully a separate director, especially if it's your first project, because a lot of us here, a lot of actors think that, because they've been on set a lot, that they can direct and act at the same time. A lot of things get missed when that happens in your first project. So it's always good to have someone to collaborate with. And if it's a very, very small crew and it's a really personal project, you can do that by having a, either a co-director or a first AD that has filmmaking experience, because that person will be the key person that will help you when you're on camera, when you're in front of the camera versus behind it during your shoot. Line producer. I'm a really big believer in line producer, because line producers in general work on budgets, and they're the ones that figure out what you need and what you will need before you go in production and what you will need after. Budgeting is very important. Like I said in the beginning, and another question, to me, the smaller the project is or the lower budget your project is, the more preparation you need, the more you need to have someone who knows a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D for things, because you are asking more favors. So I think having a good line producer who, if it was a tiny, tiny project, could be your line producer slash production manager, right? Because he or she will be the one doing your budget and knows what you need, and will be the one that's helping you crew up and put together your whole team. So that to me are very, very important people on set. And of course, you said sound. And sound, again, if you can't afford, because sound is not cheap. Let's face it, that's the thing about sound. So I understand when you have a very small project that you're paying for by yourself, and you don't really have much to pay, but you want to passionately make it. At least, like Evan said, maybe you can invest in your own equipment and have at the minimum a shotgun mic, something, or good labs, one or the other, that you can at least, and control the room that you're in. That's really, really important, because then when you do your post, when you start editing it, you can somehow clean up and manipulate some of that sound so that it doesn't sound so amateurish. And I think that's probably, those are probably my two key that I would definitely want to have on set.
I'll so the reason I recommend and sort of have invested a little bit in audio is cameras change really frequently. You have different sensor sizes, you have different, if it's, rolling shutter, digital this, or a lot of changes in cameras. So every year a new, 5 new cameras come out, and, which one do you use? And camera rentals are decently inexpensive. Audio doesn't change that much. There might be something that comes out that's like a little bit better, but like a good quality shotgun mic will still be a good quality shotgun mic tomorrow, the next day, next year, the year after. And therefore, if you're doing, as sort of Sybil said, a small project, like really small, so and those are the ones where I use my own equipment, I'm not hiring a sound person, then somebody can do it. They're holding a boom and they're facing the mic at it, and they hit record, and it records, and it's going to be clean because of the nice microphone.
Yeah.
If you're looking at types of microphone, I'm a big fan of Rode, R-O-D-E. They're great. Another great one is Shure, S-H-U-R-E. There's a number that are, those are sort of medium high-end microphone makers, makers, and you can get a variety of it. But I would say, just like with voiceover, you don't want, if you're going to invest in a good microphone, don't skimp on it. Don't get the lower end one, get a good one, because that one can last a very long time. I use a NTG3 that I bought years and years ago, but it's a great microphone. And actually during the pandemic, I've re-rigged my voiceover booth. So I actually use that mic in my VO booth because it's professional grade. It's just, I have to be really careful because it's so sensitive. And then I'm going to sort of like, I'm going to yes and the suggestion of the first AD. If I'm acting in something that I'm producing and it is big, it's not extremely small where there's just 3 people, but there's enough to have, additional actual crew members. I look for a first AD / producer. So if they can do both, one thing that I've found is I'm a much better actor if I'm not producing day of. If I'm not, essentially it's a second producer on it, and I'm there for pre-production, help with all the budgeting, the organization, everything leading up to it. I'm there for post-production all the way through the end of the project. But when we're filming, I essentially say, this person has all the control and whatever they say goes. And somebody you have to trust or somebody who's got experience. It's a great way also to learn, because then you can learn in pre-production and during and post-production with them. But having somebody else there so you don't have to, there's some meme or something about production or producing, and it's like, producing's like riding a bike. If you like have no brakes and you're going downhill and the bike is on fire.
Yeah. That sounds about right. That definitely summarizes it.
And as Sybil says, like, if you have the small productions, pre-production is really, really important. If you have big productions, pre-production is really, really important. Essentially, get everything figured out so you have an A, B, and C. So then when A, B, and C don't work and it's on set, you only have to deal with solving the fire that happened, because everything else has a plan. And I know for me, I like to be, if I'm acting, I like to be in it. And so jumping back and forth between the producer hat and the acting hat, especially if you're new to this, and even when you're not new to it, is hard. Once I started having another producer, and oftentimes they can double up as a first AD producer if it's a small set, because then they just run everything. It is extremely helpful, especially for these small projects. I know a lot of people who do self-produce, and they work with another producer who just produces, who's like a friend of theirs or does that, and it takes the weight off of their shoulders with you being assisting in the production side of it, but also gives them that credit for producing a good project. Also, just know, if you have another producer coming in, they're likely going to want to add some creative voice to it. If it's a smaller project. And as Sybil said at the beginning, filmmaking is it takes a village. And one thing that I've learned is the village is a really good thing, because every person from the village can bring something different that adds to the end product. That, so you wrote it, you have this idea of what it's going to be, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be better. The director is there to have a particular perspective that heightens it. An editor is there not just to cut and paste things, it's to add, oh, what if we did this? Oh, that's interesting, I never thought of that, right? So think of all of these additional people as ways to make it even better than it was. I have a short film that's we're finished film festivals, we're working on releasing it online, and like, the director was amazing, and I wrote it, and she filmed things that I wasn't expecting, but during filming, I was had another producer on set, and I was hands off, and like, whatever the director does, because the director runs it when you're filming. And then afterwards, she was like, okay, what about this and this? And I was like, oh, that's genius. Like, I didn't even think about that. But like, that's what they do, and you have to trust them. And if another producer is going to come in, and producing is a lot of work and not always tons of fun.
Is it really? Are you sure?
But at least for me, the creative side of it is what balances it out. So if you're bringing on another producer, one, be sort of like improv, be grateful for that other person bringing their voice to it because it can add to it, and also be grateful for them being able to take things off your plate, especially if you want to act in it, because if you're doing it as a project to highlight, you know, your ability to act at some level, then like make sure you're doing a good job of that.
Yeah.
You don't want to go through all this work and then not have the product that will be good for you. In addition, I'm a big fan of, even if you're doing it to highlight yourself as acting, you should do it about something that you're passionate about, right? If you like comedy, you should write some great comedy. You shouldn't write some great comedy for you. You should write some great comedy and then it just has a great role for you. If it's just, oh, I just want to highlight my acting, let's do this, who's going to watch it, right? You want it to be something good, and that should be the foremost. And as you know, Sybil said, casting is important in that, and everything else is. But make sure you're passionate about it, because I you know, learn from our mistakes. I've done projects where I was like, I'm not passionate about this, and then it's like, oh, this did not come out as well. But then other projects I'm really passionate about, I'm like, whoa, this is way better. So
I think that's important actually to mention that, you know, obviously everyone needs to learn and iterate and get better. It's not, I'm not saying that everyone should make a masterpiece right out of the gate with your first time producing, but because there's so much content out there and because gear is becoming even more accessible. I mean, we teach workshops all around the world on how to shoot professional content using just your smartphone. The people that are watching content now expect a certain level of professionalism. So just use, you know, this time, especially when a lot of us, you know, are not working, to shoot some stuff and practice and get better. And don't just, you know, throw everything up on YouTube automatically, because you do want to make sure that you're presenting yourself and your work and your talent in the best light. But it's interesting. So the next question is actually getting a little bit more into audio gear, which I love talking gear. So I'm so excited. So Danielle Artis via Zoom, she said, I'm about to start a project, my first short. It is a series of creative monologues, and due to COVID, I'm having each actor shoot it themselves, self-tape style. 2 questions. Can I use non-SAG actors because I'm matching likeness to real people? And based on what has been said about sound, is there any advice I can give my actors to help out my editor? The first question about using non-union actors. So if you were to do the low budget new media contract, you are able to use non-union talent and union talent in it. Obviously, if you are going to be in it yourself, make sure you file that paperwork and it's done under the low budget new media contract. But you are allowed to use pre-members, let's hopefully say pre-members in your project. And about the sound advice. So if you're really shooting, if you're having actors shoot themselves, most likely I'm guessing it'll probably be with their cell phone, or you know, if they do have a DSLR, that'd be great. But if you're using your cell phone, there's an app that I highly recommend you download. It's $15. It works for iPhone and Android, and it's called Filmic Pro, Filmic Pro. And not only will you be able to adjust exposure and focus and white balance and everything like that so the video will look really great. What's awesome about it as well in terms of audio is if that actor doesn't have a shotgun mic, and you know, obviously we talked about shotgun mics. I have mine right here. I love this guy. It's a Ceramonic. It's pretty affordable. It's like $50, shotgun microphone. I have the dongle to plug it into my smartphone. If they don't have a shotgun mic or they don't have a lavalier, what they can do in Filmic Pro is select the microphone in their smartphone. So they can choose to use the camera on the back of the camera, the front facing camera, or on the bottom. So that would help at least make sure that they're using the microphone that's pointed at their face, whether they're shooting selfie style or using the lenses on the back. So that will obviously help. My second recommendation is if you don't mind sort of sharing gear and sending maybe a kit to each performer, there is a lavalier that works for iPhones that Apogee makes called Clip Mic Digital. It's $200. It's the best investment you will make. It has the crispest quality audio. If you don't have an iPhone, Ceramonic makes a whole bunch of different lavaliers as well. And so what you might think about doing, which we did with some of our sort of projects we've been doing across the country remotely, is get a kit together, put that lavalier in there and then just mail it and have each actor maybe mail it to each person and then have like an instructions of here's how to set up your rig, here's how to set up your camera, here's your lavalier, your shotgun microphone. But Filmic Pro or lavalier that you can use in your iPhone be my recommendations. So about you guys.
I will echo what Aubrey's saying. The one thing that's important when you're doing this is that you have to keep in mind, and this is the reason we put so much effort on conversation today about audio, is when you go to post. So if you're doing one project, whether it be documentary style or live monologue style, you need to have some kind of uniformity on the audio, so that, and also hopefully in the way they shoot themselves in terms of framing. I'm assuming if you're directing this one, you should have an idea how you want it to look, so that when you put all the footage together, they're not sort of a mishmash of different kinds of sound and framing. Because I think it would really help you make your project just look more professional if you do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, do you want to say more, Sybil, or I was going to piggyback on? So yeah, piggyback, I'm a big fan of Filmic Pro. And sort of melding both what Aubrey and Sybil said, if everybody's on Filmic Pro, make sure that it's the same resolution and the same frame rate. You can select frame rate, you can select resolution. The normal, a smartphone shoots on 30 frames per second. Normal film is 24 frames. The digital version of that is 23.98, but that's essentially 24 frames per second. On Filmic Pro, you can select your frame rate. So if you want, the cinematic look, go 24 frames, but make sure everybody's doing that, because if not, on your edit, it's going to be confusing. I know this is a really, really simple thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, because not everybody, for some reason, it goes to it. Remind people to shoot on landscape mode, i.e. horizontal, and not portrait, vertical. Especially if you're potentially just matching people and they're doing, and it's more interview style, so they're not necessarily actors. Reminding them, because most people like, oh, I got my phone, I'm gonna videotape, and it's all vertical, which is like a thing. It really bothers me because like, I get Apple or whoever's doing it, but our eyes mainly go horizontal. So just like having tunnel vision, like a horse in Central Park, is really weird.
If I may piggyback with that, I mean, that's the reason I brought it up to begin with. I think as the filmmaker, I guess in this case, you should send them. I think it's better. For some reason, some people have trouble with the word landscape or widescreen. Like, I don't even know sometimes how more to explain it without drawing it out. So I started drawing it out. So if you want to be clear to your other actors how you want it, I would just literally, it's like making your own a storybook for them, to look at. So just draw or take a shot or a sample photo of how you want them to frame it. I think visuals is always very important for some people who are just not technical, maybe they don't think that way. So, just send it to them. So then there's no question and they'll know exactly how to frame themselves. Like, take a screenshot of how you want it to look and send it to them so that they can follow it.
And then I would also, from the same perspective of like how you want it directed, if you want it on sticks, if you want it not handheld, you should make sure you let people know, okay, some sort of tripod, and you can easily get for a smartphone these little, I can grab one from another room. You can get a tabletop tripod, and you can get a little attachment to the top of that holds a smartphone in place. Yeah, exactly. That is like a way. Yeah. So that's like a higher end, awesome version of it. I have like a very simple one, but I also have a ring light that things attached to it. That's something like that, so that it's locked in.
I don't know if you can see it. No, it doesn't show. Well, same thing. There's one. I have one that latches onto where you can attach it to anything. So
yeah, and they can be
a tripod, or if they have it on a chair or table, whatever it is.
And you can get them on Amazon for very inexpensive. I mean, if you want to go like an extra level, this thing right here, I just bought a DJI Pocket, which is sort of a handheld gimbal.
Everything you say, I'm just going to pull out. It's like we coordinated this.
And if you see, yeah, and that one, and the thing that's kind of nice is that can attach to a tripod. I would use a phone instead of your calculator on it, but
yeah, I was using it just a base. Yeah, you wouldn't put a phone in.
And if, yeah, that's like a next level up. I think the DJI, the Pocket 3 is on sale because they just came out with a 4. The nice thing about the 3 is you can actually set it up and then tap on your image and it'll follow you, which is just like an extra production value because then you can move a little bit more while it's still locked off. So there's like different levels up, but the simplest one I would say, you know, some sort of small tripod that can lock it off just so somebody's not holding it, unless that's what you're going for. And then if that's what you're going for as a director, that's great, because then that's more like, you know, personable, right? So just make sure you set it out, and as Sybil said, make sure it's the same for everybody so that it's easy to, or maybe operate. But somebody said
it basically.
Yeah.
Someone just was asking what this was. So this is a small rig phone cage, but Ulanzi also makes really affordable phone cages as well. This guy on top is a aperture light. It's very, very bright. I use this for my self-tapes and it works amazingly, and it's the size of a credit card. As you can see, it's the Aperture Amaron AL-M9 light. It's not the most user-friendly name to remember, but if you Google Aperture lights, this guy will come up, and a phone cage, if you just put in phone cage for smartphones, a whole bunch of options will come up.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one I use. It's got a little tripod mount on the bottom, and it essentially can, oh, maybe. Did I lock it? Oh, I locked it. Nope. I just don't know how to work it. That's the problem. Well, it opens and closes when I'm not on camera. But yeah, you can make it wider, so you can have an iPad, or you can make it smaller. You can also go horizontal. I think this was like under $10 on Amazon.
They basically look like those, you know, holders that you can bring your navigation or your phone in a car. Yeah, there's a lot of those that you can attach to a tripod, or it has spider legs that you can literally attach to anything in your home. So it really depends on what you have on your setup. I know you know, a lot of you are conscious of budget, so I'm sure some of these tech that we're showing here are a little bit more than maybe what you budget to have. There's always cheaper ways to do it as well. So even those phone holders for those car attachments can actually work, as long as you have a piece on it that can, you know, that can clip into either a tripod or the side of your table, whatever it is that you have at home that you can help set up.
And if the people in this case are actors, investing in a couple things that would help their self-tapes go to the right level would not be the worst. I mean, most of this gear I use for my self-tape, I've got a ring light as well, but you know, those are all things.
Background and stands.
Yeah.
Great. So we have someone who wants to jump on via Zoom and ask a question. So Nick Sakai, if you, let me turn on your video. 1 second, sorry. Unmute you.
You're in mute.
There we go.
All right. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you, Nick?
Hi, Nick.
Hi. Hi, Sybil. Hey, Eva.
Hello, sir.
Hey. Are you in Astoria still?
I am.
Oh, awesome. We're neighbors, actually. Anyhow, so 2 questions. One is quick. What's the P&H contribution rate that we have to put aside if we elect to pay the performers? That's for any contracts, right? Including spa.
Yes. So, Evan, are you looking up the exact percentage?
I'm looking up the exact percentage.
I know
think it's just under 20%.
It's
so,
19. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're accurate, because I know it changes every so often too. So, but it's about 19. I think Evan can hopefully look up the exact amount. But yes, you will have to pay the same P&H for spa projects or low budget new media. You do not have to pay into pension and health if you're deferring payment. However, as we talked about earlier, if that project ends up on a pay to download site, you will absolutely need to not only pay out your deferred payments, but you will also need to pay those pension and health contributions immediately at the same time the second that goes live. But if you're deferring payment, you can also defer the pension and health contributions as well.
Right. So if you're paying them, I have to worry about not just $150 per day. I have to put aside a 19-something percent.
Yes. And staff is great at reminding producers about that. When you're filling out paperwork, right before they sort of give you the go ahead, the green light to shoot, they put the P&H contributions in there, and they do even make you submit a budget. So they make sure that producers are budgeting, even if it's deferred payment, that they know what they're deferring, what the amount is, and the pension and health contributions. So it is absolutely, as you know, it's the same thing. You want to make sure you're budgeting for post with your production budget. You want to be able to budget for your deferred payments as well if you are planning on posting to a paid download platform.
And
Evan, did you get that percentage?
Not yet. I'm looking.
Okay.
It'd be nice if it was under the frequently asked questions area.
I will.
We should recommend that.
Yeah,
pretty
we'll
sure
recommend
it's
that. I believe it's like
Yeah.
19.6 or something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
so. Yeah. That's at least the last film. That's what we budgeted.
Let's see if I can search it. Did you have another question though, Nick?
I do. So this is COVID related.
Okay.
I know that SAG-AFTRA just reached an agreement with AMPTP regarding the COVID procedures and all that stuff. You may not have all the answers. I understand that, but for indie projects like this, do we have any guidelines in terms of we have to quarantine like a week and we have to pay them for these days and all that stuff? Do you have any?
Yes.
clarity?
So it's the same as of right now. This might be changing soon for smaller budget productions. We're not sure. Check constantly on the site because stuff is changing by the minute. But absolutely, producers, just like on high budget productions, will have to pay for COVID testing for all performers. They're going to be working on a rate sheet that actually sort of, will calculate some of the added cost essentially to hire a SAG-AFTRA producer. So that'll be coming out soon as well. But I would say anticipate sort of like a 15 to 20% added cost to the budget of your production to make sure that you are not only paying for COVID testing, but you will also need to have a COVID compliant officer on set. Those rates are negotiated separately. The union doesn't really handle that, so that would be a different budget. But absolutely, the same things will sort of apply for a low budget production as of right now, than as they will to a high budget. But it's it's the cost of testing and the COVID compliant officer. I think that's going to add it.
Yeah. And one thing, just to add on that with the small budget projects. So I believe the current standards are actors are tested. Is it 2 to 3 times a week? So 3 times in a 7-day period, and crew is, I believe, once a week. I believe it's
depends
on
which zone.
It depends on which zone.
Right.
But if you're a small production, essentially what that means, and you're probably doing just a couple days of filming, if that essentially means just make sure every crew and actor goes and gets tested ahead of time, and then in New York we have CityMD that I believe is like free testing. If you have insurance of any kind, I think at least in New York, I don't know about California, it's covered, and you might have a copay. So really, as a producer, you would potentially just be paying the copay of a crew or cast member who goes in and just had that. So if you're doing a 2-week long shoot, you're doing a week-long shoot, then it's going to be a bit more requirement, especially if you're not in the area. But again, if you're doing it in like New York, you're shooting only in New York, and you're doing a week-long shoot, you can have your cast members. You have to schedule that time, and the time that they go to get tested would be on their timesheet. But they could 3 times during that week go and get tested to make sure they're following the protocols, as well as the on-set protocols. But there are ways of it not being like you don't have to have a doctor on set like a giant production, but a smaller one still just you want to protect all of the performers. So I mean, I'm going to get a COVID test tomorrow, and I've had quite a few, the last couple months that it's, they're not necessarily pleasant, but they're pretty easy to do in New York. I don't know if California is or LA is as easy. I know in New York, on the Upper West Side, I believe there's just like an entertainment-based COVID testing that just opened up that gets results within 15 minutes. I don't know the prices on that, but it's
I asked that it's $200.
$200. Okay. So, but like if you're a production and you need somebody and you need to know immediately, there's now a resource for fast turnaround for cast crew. But also they can test during, throughout the week. I know NYU Langone Hospital in New York, they usually give results within 24 hours. CityMD sometimes is a few days, but NYU and Langone, because they have their own in-house testing facility, they have a lot faster turnaround. So you can, get a test one evening and the next morning have it available. And again, in a lot of at least New York initiatives, most of the testing is covered. And so it might just be a copay. So as a producer, okay, you have 4 people, 5 people on set, and maybe it's $30 copay each. So it's $150, but you're also $150 to make sure nobody's got COVID on your set is both what you owe yourself and you owe your cast and crew, and is a lot better than like going in blind.
Just to speak, this is the conversation that's almost taken over the PGA. It's always about like this whole COVID, because there's different levels of production out there, obviously, and how they're handling this. I have to say, I think 15 to 20% is very, very small in terms of assuming what extra costs you may have to incur. Because even in small production, I know you don't need a doctor on set, but you do need a medic. You do need someone who's a registered nurse at the minimum that can do these tests for your cast and crew. So that's, their costs are not usually, regular crew cost, as as like a medic. It's even more than that, because they're nurses. They're actually either doctors or nurses, right? And then having your COVID compliance that you need to follow to make sure that your set is ready and safe. You would definitely need more time before you can get started, which means shorter shooting days for your team, which means added cost. That's why I always say I always say that you need to prepare for, at least if you have budgeted already, I would say you would need at least 25 to 30% assumption that you might potentially go over, because of you're going to have to make up those days, right? So instead of a 5-day shoot, you may have to do a 6-day shoot. You're just literally losing a quarter of your day on all these, on all of these restrictions, because part of the COO job is to go around and make sure, for example, like your simple thing is your G&E, they have to clean their equipment every couple of hours to make sure if someone else touches it, everything like has steps that go with it. Everybody before they walk in need to be tested or need to be checked temperature. So all of this will take time, which will pretty much shorten your day. So I would just definitely, as a producer, budget for more. Even if it's tight, you're going to have to. Unfortunately, a lot of these rapid tests are not efficient. So even the one here in the city, it's not yet that efficient enough. I mean, it is really secondary for having regular tests done, the main test, and then that's sort of a backup for same day. Like let's say you needed to prepare 2 weeks. That's why almost all productions right now are still doing the 2-week quarantine thing. They test, they quarantine, and then they test, and they go to set and they do the rapid test, and that takes a lot of budget. But for smaller production, obviously you won't be doing, or probably most production won't be able to afford to do that, many times. So you'll just have to kind of figure out the best way to assess the health of your cast and crew with the most efficient time, with your so definitely budget for it, just so you're not surprised.
Yeah, Sybil, I have actually quick sort of follow-up question from Brett Deskin that maybe I'm guessing the answer is yes, but he asked, if you're shooting remote with no cast and crew interaction, do you still need to have a COVID-19 safety officer? Obviously, it would just be you. I know that SAG-AFTRA is usually pretty hard and set about just rules across the board, but I don't know if you know of anything differently.
So
or just
it depends. Are you by yourself? If he's asking, he's by himself, shooting by himself.
Yeah.
On a remote area, I mean, who's gonna know, right? It's like, you're testing yourself. You could get yourself sick. You're by yourself. If you're a production though, that even though you're in a remote area, but you're gonna be seeing people afterwards when you get home, when you come out, so you are gonna potentially still infect or be infected, potentially. I'm not saying you will, but there is that chance. So
if you have a cameraman and an AC or something as well.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, in the most crazy idea that maybe someone is just doing like a self, maybe you're going out there in the middle. I'm just saying, no matter what, even if you're by yourself, I think it is definitely ideal to keep within the regulations to protect yourself, because it depends how far or where your production's going. If you're shooting by yourself in the middle of nowhere and you're putting up on YouTube and it's not really something that you're planning to go for distribution or to send to anybody, and maybe it won't matter. I'm not saying it won't, but that's, that's your responsibility. But definitely recommend that if you want to do it right, especially these days, I feel like there are things that's just not worth taking a risk on, and this is one of those. It's very rare. There's very rare few things that is just not worth it, and this is one of those.
Rick followed him and said, yes, he is alone. I would just double check. I mean, just make sure. The best thing you can do is just explain to staff, like as Evan said, staff wants to make it easy for member producers. So just, if you're truly just shooting yourself in your house by yourself, I would just contact staff and let them know that's the situation. And, they probably will be able to work with you without needing to hire, bringing, I guess, ideally, someone would be like actually having to come into that space. But just make sure you ask staff and just be upfront about what the situation is. And usually they're really willing to work with you. Nick, we will get
you. If you don't mind, I have a quick question. Pardon my ignorance on this. When you say staff, you mean like them just calling SAG, right?
SAG-AFTRA staff, yes. So, yes.
I just want to make sure it's clear, because I honestly, you kept saying staff, and I'm like, is she talking about a different group? Like, I don't know. So, sorry, yes. I guess to clarify also for everyone else, unless it's just me who didn't get it. But okay. So to call SAG and just check in.
Yes.
Actually, I find SAG, when you call them, sometimes it's tough to get through certain departments, especially during right now, because it's not a fully up. But I would, if you can't get through, the way I see it, if you can't get through for questions like that, if you can't get through the New York office, I try LA, because one or the other, someone's going to pick up, and then you can get your questions answered. So, yeah.
Nick, I'm sorry we didn't get you that exact percentage. I will look it up and I will send it to you though. So, but I know it's 19 point something.
I think it's 19.5. At least that's what's budgeted.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But thank you. Do you have anything else?
No, that's about it. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you again.
All right. I will meet you again just to keep things coherent. Okay. Got a couple more questions. I know we're coming up on the half hour soon, but Shay Scullin via Zoom wanted to know, will there be a list of recommended starter hardware and more advanced hardware for the do-it-yourself producer actor? So I know we put some of the recommendations Jen did in our chat box. Also, I have a set of slides, a keynote presentation that has all of this gear recommendation and some best practices that I'm happy to share. It's for our filmmaking community, but I'm happy to share it with you. It's a free download. So if you go to wemakemovies.org/slides, I will text that to Jen, but wemakemovies.org/slides, you can download a PDF of all of these gear recommendations that I had. And I don't know if Evan and Sybil have another place that they can point people to as well, but that's definitely a good starting point.
So I don't have things related to gear, but if you go to electronicbass.com, I have a link in the menu titled For Producers, and that runs down sort of a lot of the paperwork stuff, discussions about pre-production, post-production, just running through things, questions about the legality of filming on the subway, or in New York, how to get a New York City permit, things like that, easy captions. So that's helpful, but I will probably try and get a recommended film list or the link from Aubrey, and then I'll just add that to that as well, so it can link to that. But yeah, I mean, with all the discussion on the tech, we've got these amazing smartphones, right? I mean, they are. And don't get me wrong, if you talk to a cinematographer, they will crap all over a smartphone and never actually say a smartphone is a camera, because it is not like a professional video camera, and you can't do the amazing things that DPs can do with like an actual camera. But if you're shooting a small production, and the goal is to keep it inexpensive and it's a good project, don't let the tech hold you back. As Aubrey mentioned, Filmic Pro, you can make that work. Especially if you're shooting outside, adding a small little shotgun that plugs into your phone. adds to a lot of sound quality, but don't let the tech hold you back. You can get DaVinci Resolve if your computer, can handle it. You can edit up to 1080 video footage for free. Use the full suite for editing, and it's a great nonlinear editor, NLE as it's called, that's free to use. So you can use a lot of quality things, and I just make sure you're filming with the best that you can with the technology you have. But what's his name? Mark. Oh my gosh, what's the writer actors? He's got a brother, and he was on the Mindy Project. Mark Duplass. Yeah. Thank you. Mark Duplass did this speech at, I think, South by Southwest a number of years ago, and he said, his first production that they filmed, they had a pretty decent budget, he and his brother, and it was a really crappy film, and it looked great, but it didn't do well at all. It did poorly because it wasn't a great production. And then he was really passionate about a project, had no money, and just filmed it with what they had, and that's the one that put their name on the map, that won all these festival things because the project was good, right? So I mean, if you make something that has a good story, that is interesting, that has good acting, that has good directing, that has all these things, people are forgiving. Try and have the sound good, because that'll pull people away. But like, I think it was said earlier, if it goes a little bit out of focus, that's artistic. If sound starts crackling, not artistic, right? But you can do a lot with a little, and just make sure the project is good, that you're passionate about it, that it's something that you bring good people on, right? I mean, another thing, as performers, you've worked with people, you have friends who are great performers, right? Use those skills, and don't just, this role will be great. Find the right person for that role. This person is trying to direct more and more. Let's bring that voice in, right? Create something good. Don't worry, especially during the time of pandemic when work is low and money is not necessarily free flowing, that you can definitely work within means and modify with just little tweaks to make it, a step up, right? I mean, the reason I focus on audio is that could, the difference between no additional audio and a small shotgun mic, not even one that's on a boom, but a small one that you can, plug in, that's, I don't know, $40. I don't know. I haven't bought one in a while. It might be more than that, but that can make a huge difference, right? The difference between, if you have something really interesting and it's on your phone, nobody's gonna care if, what do they say? If they're noticing certain things, it's a problem with your film, not the filmmaking. It's a problem that they're starting to notice that because they're getting bored, right?
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Sybil.
I'm gonna also play devil's advocate on the other side of it. I feel like it depends, only because my job is to watch films constantly. I literally watch in one day. I can watch up to 100 films back to back to back to back. When your film is going out there and competing with other films, those little imperfections, the wrong imperfections, I should say, not the imperfections, because every film has an imperfection, but those wrong imperfections will stand out, whether it be a performance, whether it be light, whether it be sound, whether it be, camera, whatnot. So I think it's really important, just because I don't want to, I'm a big supporter of independent film, because this is the world I'm in. I chose to produce in the independent side. I am in a festival that works with independent filmmakers specifically, because I love, being able to represent that world and that community. But there is also such a thing as knowing what your project is and the quality of the project that you're putting out there. It's great that almost anyone and their children can make films nowadays if they want to. It's just a matter of they put themselves on camera, and that's maybe one of the sort of a little bit of the off-putting part of using the phone. And I love my phone. I have a phone that shoots 8K. I use my phone to shoot a lot of things. But depending on what the project is and what I'm trying to do, I do have to pick what I'm going to use gear-wise, just to go back on the talking about gear. I feel like if you are going to make a project and if you're planning to do more cinematic work, right? You're planning to do something that's for, that you're planning to hopefully get distribution for, or try to get into festivals and such. it makes a difference what gear you use. It really does. And when it comes to camera, I'm a big believer that it's not a matter of what camera you use and it's not a matter of what camera you use. It's a matter of what lens you use, right? So cameras come and go. Cameras, you can have a camera that's really old, but the lenses are the most important part that work on it, and how you're, depending on what the theme or what the feel of your movie is. And consistency is important because it is a character in a, at least in a narrative, right? It's really important. It makes a big difference how you shoot it, because there are a lot of limitations on what you can shoot on a film. If you are shooting footage that are additional footages for a film, for example, oops, excuse me, spilled my coffee almost. It didn't, but almost did.
See, and if she had a good cinematographer, it would have panned down, wouldn't really tension filled.
In slow motion.
Which I would also add, not only is the lens important, but it's less the camera, more the camera operator as well. If you know, if somebody knows how to use it.
It does, but but the thing is this, I feel like, not just a camera operator, like that's why I believe in cinematographers, like having a good cinematic eye, because I literally have seen films with the highest level of camera operation and gear in shooting, and I would take the other art film that I got because I can tell that the person shooting it comes from a completely different point of view in terms of the way they shoot, that it really has its own character. So just be clear as to what because I don't, it depends on what your project's going to be and what the theme is. Try to, before you start any projects, be clear in your mind on what you're trying to put together, and the feel and the look and everything of it. And you know what, if at the minimum, if you were going to do a phone film, which I have seen phone film festivals, and I've seen great work in some of these phones, the work that goes into it prior to shooting it is also much, much more than just doing a regular, because it's so tempting to just shoot because you have your phone, you can go anywhere. But really, you have to storyboard that. If you want it to look, professional and make it look like you shot it in a real camera per se, whatever real camera technically means, you just have to be really good about planning it. That's why when you look at adventure videos, for example, that use a lot of these GoPros, when you think about GoPros, there's this little tiny cameras with little lenses that are amazing, but they're tiny and they're not really, DSLR level or Alexa level, but they shoot amazing footage. So it's a matter of you prepping how you want to shoot whatever your project it is, whether it be documentary, narrative, pilot, whatever it is. Just be prepared on how you want to make it look so that it looks good. That's really, really important.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's important to know, what is just you practicing, what is something that's ready for prime time, and, being able to have being able to discern the difference. I know we're almost at time.
I was going to add one quick thing before the next question. Just because you can film it doesn't mean you should film it. The reason that producers are the ones who go and accept the best film award is because it takes a lot of work, and hopefully from this discussion you'll get a sense that there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot, and the producer is the one who sort of oversees and makes sure all the pieces are talking to each other or doing their thing. That making sure that preparation is in there. Just because you can go and shoot doesn't mean you're ready to go and shoot. So make sure you've got all the pieces in place, because you also don't want to film and be like, oh man, I wish I had done this. I should have prepared more, because going back is costly, and then you're just reshooting and reshooting. Make sure you have everything planned, right? It's a village, and you need that village.
More so, that's why I speak about low budget films. Really, I know you have to prep for big productions as well, but for low budget, I feel like the preparation is more important, because the difference is on a big production, your plan B, plan C, plan D, you might have money for it. On a low budget, you may not have money to go for a plan B, C, and D. So you have to prep yourself. What would happen if this, doesn't work out? And for example, simple things as paying for a permit with Made in New York so that you can shoot legally versus not paying a permit. $350 is nothing, because at the end of the day, you can shoot and you can finish what you're shooting, versus going run and gun, and then you're getting kicked out in the middle of your shoot, and you can't afford to do it another day and hire someone to come in again. So at the end of the day, you end up like, oh God, now I don't have a complete scene because you were not even supposed to be there, and a cop sees you and kicks you out. So You just have to be practical in where you're putting, those pennies so that you can actually make something. And it's not impossible. Evan can attest to it. I can attest to it. And Aubrey can. Like this is something we've done and I've done before. It's not impossible. Bring the right people in, and you can make a good project.
And like just on the prep side of things, I had talking with a producer recently who produced sort of like a Zoom series. They didn't use people's webcam. They had either smartphones or cameras right next to where the webcam was, locked off. And then those were the things that were filming, and then they were on with the director or whatever via their webcam, and so they had a higher quality whatever filming. And because they knew, like, even though you want that look to make, just like with any set, right? To make it look like there's no extra lighting, there's all this extra lighting, right? To make it look like there's nothing extra, you have to do all this other stuff. So just think about that from the producing side. Okay, I want it, if you're doing a run and gun handheld feel and you want it from your camera, okay, use it from your smartphone, but then make sure you have a specific way you're doing it, right? There's the nervous one, there's the like little jumpy, there's the locked off, and then maybe a little zoom in, right? There's a lot that goes into it that just, even if you're doing the lower budget stuff, think ahead.
So we have one more question that I want to squeeze in before we run out of time. But if you saw, Jen put in a link. There's free tutorials that I made on Filmic Pro using second source audio and editing on Final Cut. So feel free to check those out. It's wemakemovies.org/tutorials. And hopefully we can share some of these links afterwards as well. But it's a great way to get started if you're new to filmmaking. Okay, last question. Jacqueline Palmquist again from YouTube. She was asking, can the union connect new producers with veterans of indie production for mentorship? And I think this is such a great idea. I know there's been talks of sort of a buddy system with just helping, some of our more senior SAG-AFTRA members, even just learning the technology. Obviously, now we're doing so many more Zooms, so many more self-tapes and all of that. So I think trying to find a way to have a way to have people collaborate and connect with people who are experienced. I know previously, when we were in person, the union in LA, we did a series of educational workshops called Call to Create, where we were sort of trying to bring people together to learn about ways to produce, and hopefully getting people to meet and connect and maybe find a like-minded collaborator. So I know it's a little bit more challenging while we're remote, but I think this is something that I personally would love to see the union do more of. So hopefully we can figure that out. There's not, as far as I know, a program that exists, but I know there's been a lot of effort by the union in the past couple years to really, really educate its members on the benefits of self-production and how to do it well. So I don't see that going away. If anything, I think they're gonna, be doing a lot more of it because of the nature of the new normal. So
I would also, you could also look up, there's a lot of other places. Like I'm a member of the Producers Guild, and the Producers Guild does have some of these mentorship programs, that we do for the education side. So just maybe look at their website. That's Producers Guild of America. And I believe NYWIF, the New York Women in Film Television, does some programs as well for our women filmmakers out there, producers. There's a lot of other, groups that are friends of SAG-AFTRA that are doing this, and they sometimes do some collaborative work. So look into it. At least while SAG-AFTRA doesn't have it, doesn't mean you have to wait. You should go out there and just check out what they have, because you might be able to find something that could fit what you're looking for.
Yeah, and just sort of piggybacking on that, I think one of the advantages of sort of doing all these Zooms and interactive things is allowed us to do panels like this, and there's so many different groups doing so many different panels that it's all about sort of empowering members, empowering other people. And I think next gen performers in LA and next gen performers in New York and all over the country. Next gen performers is a sub group under Move, and Move is the committee, the organization within, committee in SAG-AFTRA that's all about connecting members and helping with member education and connecting. So I know, in New York, there had been discussions about that. We, NGP, just before the pandemic, had started hosting sort of these cafes. And our first one was on self-producing, and we had, a member of new media staff and a member of theatrical staff come in. And so, we had member self-producers there answering questions, and then staff there who could answer very specific questions. And it was great. And then, because we could, we had an after group kind of like hangout where we could all sort of connect more. It's a little bit harder now, but I think, once we can get back to the new normal, whenever that is, with a vaccine or whatnot, I think more of that will come out of it. But I also see like all these Zoom things, it's people realizing we can empower each other. And when we power each other, we make the other person better, that then can help the whole community get better and make greater things.
That's great. We're right at time. So I just have a couple housekeeping things. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much to both you, Evan and Sybil, for taking the time today to chat about all this stuff. I think we covered a lot of ground, and I always really get jazzed up to chat about it. So thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we can do more of these in the future. And I know this will be replaying, so hopefully a lot more people can learn from it. Thank you to also everyone who was tuning in and watching, whether you were on YouTube or you were on Zoom. We really appreciated all of your awesome questions. And we have just a couple favors to ask. We'd love your feedback on, what you thought of these live streams. Since they're brand new, we're trying to get our footing and figure out, what is appropriate length. Was this too long, too short? Or do you have any possible topic suggestions? What would you like to see a live stream on next? We definitely are welcoming any and all feedback. So you can find any of us on Instagram. I know Amir and Jen Levin, who have sort of been really knocking these live streams out of the park. You can find them pretty easily on Instagram. You're also more than welcome to email me directly, and I can pass it along to them. Again, my email address is so easily Googleable anyway, but it's aubrey@wemakemovies.org, and I'll send that to Jen as well to put in the chat. So don't hesitate to reach out, whether it's about feedback or questions about any of the things that we talked about. Happy to help. And secondly, Sybil, go ahead.
I was going to say, is that okay? I just want to also mention the film festival that I'm running. So I run the Soho International Film Festival, which is running October 15th to the 22nd. And the reason I'm mentioning that, actually more specifically from the questions we're getting today and the people that are calling in, I think it might be a good place for a lot of filmmakers. If we were live, it's definitely somewhere you should go, because it's a place to meet other filmmakers, other collaborators, other producers, so that you could potentially network with. We are virtual this year, but we are also still making it accessible to anyone attending to meet, these filmmakers and to kind of network. So there is a lot of Q&As and panels. It's going to happen the week of the festival that I think would be very helpful to answer some of these questions coming from those who are right now in the middle of all of this, the new filmmakers, the ones that have their projects that were picked, and what is it about the production that worked, that didn't work, that maybe, could provide insight for a lot of these of our SAG-AFTRA members.
That'd be great. Yes, definitely check that out. That's a great opportunity and resource, especially because it's remote. So thank you for mentioning that.
SohoFilmFest.com, just so you know.
SohoFilmFest.com. Awesome. And just lastly, last request, if you guys don't mind spreading the word about these live streams, that would be great. We'd love to get as many, SAG-AFTRA members and SAG-AFTRA pre-members as possible to tune into these. While the union is at reduced capacity in terms of what they're able to do, we really want to make sure that there's a place for the community to come and talk and discuss some of these really important topics, and also get feedback to the leaders. So please help spread the word on social media, and stay tuned for the next You Are the Union live stream. I'm sure they'll be announcing one really soon, but let us know what you want to hear and what you want us to cover. And just lastly, remember that you are the union. So if you'd like to get more involved in union workings, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the people. You see some Instagram handles or me via email, and we will do whatever we can to get you plugged in. So thank you. Also, I just want to take the time to thank Jen Levin and Amir Talai for organizing these so amazingly. They've done an amazing job. Check out the past replays on YouTube. Thank you to both of them for organizing and hosting and letting us sort of drop in on this one. And we're able to just sort of hang out in here. So you don't have to leave if you don't want to. We can stay and chat. But, you know, thank you so much again for everyone for coming out. Really appreciate your time. Oh, the meeting, sorry. I'm confused. Sorry. The meeting is over for everyone else. But obviously connect with us on Instagram or on email. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Have a good one.